This is the 420 Lifestyle Show with Carly Marley, and we have Boss Lissa on the side. It's just me and Alyssa today, no co-host. Doing a pretty casual show today because it has been an insane week. It's been actually a pretty crazy few months for anyone in the cannabis industry, but this week has been really busy for me. I was at the Cannabis, Hemp conference and Expo all weekend, which we were broadcasting live on Pot TV. It was an amazing time. It was really educational. There's a lot of amazing speakers and exhibitors. It was an awesome experience, and I got to see a lot of friends and activists and meet a lot of really interesting people in the community. So it was really awesome, and I have lots of videos that I want to bring you guys from that as well. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing that this week. And I've also been posting a lot of Cannabis Day videos, including some of the speeches, such as one from Jody Emery, Jeremiah Vandermeer, Neil Magnuson, Dana Larson. And there's also going to be some more videos coming out of Cannabis Day really soon. So that's kind of what else is going on for me this week and what you guys can look forward to. And I do have one short video that I've put together. It's kind of a little highlight reel, some of the fun moments that I managed to capture on Cannabis Day this year at the Vancouver Art Gallery. So Alyssa can play that for you guys now. So that was a little bit from Cannabis Day 2016. And if you've tuned in to other episodes about Cannabis Day on Pot TV, you'll know that there was a little bit of drama that happened this year, a little bit of aggression we faced from some activist groups that decided they wanted to try to take over our event. And I decided not to include any of that kind of drama in the little Cannabis Day video I was sharing around because I figured getting the message across about how fun Cannabis Day can be and that the cannabis culture crew and all of our friends and everyone in our Canna family was off on the side, having fun, smoking weed, selling weed, singing about weed, dancing to music about weed. I think that was the message that I was trying to get across, so that's why I chose not to include any of that in that video. So I hope you guys liked that. I'm just rolling up doobie here. What am I rolling? Diablo Pink Kush. I've also been very busy because I've been helping out in-store and at the dispensary. Dispensary is amazing. We have so many amazing types of weed there, and it's really rewarding being able to help people get what they need and what they've been trying to look for so many years. It's a really rewarding experience, and I'm really looking forward to when there's job opportunities all across Canada for people to be able to sell bud and not have to worry about getting arrested. I think it will be awesome. Yeah, it would be nice to not be worried about being arrested. And I've also started doing social media stuff for cannabis culture this week. So I've been posting some bud shots as well as some other things that are cool. I'm trying to do more things where we like repost people's photos because I know it always feels cool when somebody notices when you tag them and stuff like that. So I'm going to be trying to share around a lot of like user created content too on our social media, which I think is going to be really exciting. So I've also been super busy with that this week. Yeah, I'm going to spark up this doobie, and then I'm going to we're going to play the video of Jeremiah moderating his panel, the panel that he was at the Cannabis Hemp conference. He was moderating the dispensary panel. I didn't get full videos of all of the panels because we do have full weekend available, day 1, day 2, on Pod TV right now, and I am going to be bringing some more of the panels, pulling them from that live stream. But I thought that this panel in particular was really important to share because I think in a lot of ways, whether or not we get dispensaries is one of the main things that we need to be focusing on right now. And it's one of the main, deciding factors of whether or not we're going to see legalization that we've been working for, because we want storefront access. We want to be able to smell our bud. We don't have to get it from government corporations. We don't have to go to liquor stores to get it. We don't have to get it from the mail either. So I thought it would be really important to share this panel in particular because I think it's something. Oh, 1 minute warning until 4:20. Oh, that's awesome. Well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to spark this doob, I'm going to pass it to you, and then I'm going to take a dab, and then we're going to play the video. I have the worst habit of using these as lighters and then going and putting my hand up the same way I do with a lighter and almost taking my palm off. It's the worst. Don't do that. Do you like my lighter? It's so sweet. It's in your pocket. I do. You could almost put it in like your wallet. It's tall, sexy, and slender like you, Alyssa. Yeah, but the Cannabis and Hemp conference, it was really amazing. It was awesome. We have Craig X just walked into the house.
Happy 420.
Happy 420.
Carly Marley.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Jack. How are you, darling? Great hanging out with you for the weekend.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. I was just telling them about how busy we've been.
My feet are still sore.
Yeah, but it was an amazing event. I had a lot of fun. Super educational.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Tons of people, tons of guests, lots of good information. It was a whole lot of fun, and we got about 15 hours of it on Pot TV when the Wi-Fi would allow us.
Yep.
It was pretty great. Yeah, lots of amazing speakers. I mean, I like to joke that, I'm the expert. But an event like that, I wasn't the expert.
There was a lot of experts, and experts on all sorts of things, which was the really amazing part. Everything from psychedelics to extraction to terpenes to CBD, like all these amazing topics of alternative culture that you don't normally get to hear about that often.
And lots on hemp.
So much information on hemp. Yeah. The other video that I'm going to be working on putting up is we have Johnny B. You might have seen it live. Explaining hemp separation and some of the different things that hemp can be used for. And it's really exciting. I was so focused on recording, I didn't get to hear as much as I'd like to have. So I'm really excited to edit the video so I can actually know what he was all talking about. And we also have Craig, some videos of Craig X rolling doobies with Stormy and there's a lot of amazing exhibits. I got to try a lot of edibles. They had a lot of sugary edibles. And you guys might have heard me say before, I have a super high tolerance for edibles. But generally, sugary edibles affect me more. And I find out this weekend that there's actually a binding process that happens with sugar when marijuana decarboxylates, that they feed off of each other. And it's one of the factors that can actually help increase your high. So I found out that there really is a reason why those really high sugary extract or edibles get me high. So I was getting stoned on cotton candy and candies and honey all weekend, and it was awesome and amazing.
And then last night at 7:10 happened where the Thompson Caribou motherfuckers had the syrup bar out, and these sons of bitches fucking handed out all this deliciously watermelon syrup, and I drank like 7 of these cocksuckers and ended up waking up at 11 o'clock in the worst fucking herb hangover fog I've ever had. Shouts to the Caribous, but goddamn, what did you bastards do to me?
Cannaline hangover.
I was trying to do my social media. I was trying to hook up with other people because, I was trying to play catch up for the weekend, and I was on like 2 a.m, literally leaning.
So that's why they call it lean.
I was like, I can't type my fingers to stop it working. It was insane, but we're good now.
That's good. Yeah. It's been busy. Yeah, and it was an awesome party here last night at Cannabis Culture HQ with the Thompson Caribou guys. Creed Taylor was performing, as well as Crispel, Julius and Finch, which is awesome. I don't know if you... Finch and Julius? Oh, fuck, I always fuck that up. So sorry. Which I don't know if you guys have noticed their logo at the end of the show before, but they do the theme song for the 420 Lifestyle show, so... That's pretty cool. Pretty talented crew of people out last night. Stoner Advisory doing live painting. Bree Fisher was doing book signings in the lounge. She's one of our lounge employees. So that was really cool too. A lot of people in the community were really involved. So all around, it was an awesome weekend. Oh yeah, there was raffles too at the 710 party.
Yeah. What, an e-nail and a bunch of shatter and a bunch of herbs?
E-nail, shatter, and herbs giveaway. That's pretty awesome.
And we had a bunch of it on TV?
Yes, and it was all streamed, so the video's up now. There will be more footage coming to you as well for me. Add that onto my long list of videos to soon share with Pot TV. Yeah, and then some of the other interesting panels that went on, I really also enjoyed listening to the Activism panel, which Mark and Jody were a part of. I didn't record the whole thing, and I would like to hear more from Mark on this subject than I did at the panel. Well, I don't think they didn't ask Mark quite as many questions, and I love hearing Mark answer questions about activism because his approach to activism is so in your face. Yeah, like he's like, I'll get arrested. I'll put myself in the way. Like if you're willing to get arrested for your cause, you're an activist. And he like,
no gray area.
Yeah.
He's like, no.
Yeah, there is no gray areas with Mark. Like you're willing to put yourself on the line for your cause or you're not. And he has this way of phrasing it in a way that it makes you want to jump in with 2 feet. And it's really impressive. So he didn't speak too much at the panel though, which was interesting. They didn't direct too many questions towards him. There was a lot of really amazing panels though. I got a really good video on Hemp. Salome, the organizer of the event, motioned to me that we
What kind of questions were they asking?
All sorts of things. I mean, it would depend on the topic for what type of questions they were asking, but you know, a lot of it was geared towards what's going to happen with these things in the next few years. How are these things going to be affected by legalization? Are we still going to have access to these things we're talking about? How are we going to have access to these things we're talking about? Seemed to be a lot of the overall theme because, you know, it was weird. There was kind of some weird things too. It was an interesting environment, and I hope that it's more, you know, that legalization will be more like this, where we're able to be in a similar space. But it was kind of strange seeing, you know, really activist-ran organizations like Eden have booths right beside Tilray. It's like,
and they didn't end up wrestling or arm wrestling. I didn't see anyone come to blows.
No fist fights, surprisingly enough. So, you know, and with that being the overall theme, I hope that that's the kind of legalization we're able to move towards, you know, where we can work together. If there's people who like the LPs and the LPs work for them, good. I don't think we should get rid of them. An open marketplace is an open marketplace. But I hope we're just as easily allowed to sell beside them as we were able to exhibit beside them this weekend.
See, that was a lot of the theme that you did say on there was some coexisting going on. The knowledge that was dropped, there was a dozen different panels with all sorts of different speakers. Of course, so many different topics from the research, from the CBD, from how it affects kids, from skincare, internal medicine, just every panel. There was extraction panels. There was all these different areas, but a lot of the overall theme, even when you had dispensaries and LPs on the same panels together, there did seem to be a general consensus to responsibility, accountability, and moving forward as a whole as a community. But yes, it's trying to find a common ground is, of course, the hard part. But
unity seemed to be a word you heard a lot.
UNITY.
Yeah, so...
Shouts to Queen Latifah.
Yeah, and it was a really awesome event. I learned so much from so many people, and I met so many
filmed so
interesting
much.
people. Yeah, I did.
You got all the shooting.
I got a lot of video. And I still got a lot of video from Cannabis. So many videos to share with you guys. I'm so excited. It's going to be pretty
Carly content.
Carly content. This is a pretty decent length video of Jeremiah moderating this panel. The panel, I can't remember everyone's names on it now. I know there's an Andrea, can't remember her last name. Heard her speak before too, and she's very interesting. Mr. David Mamalubin is on the panel, which you guys probably know. I'm a huge fan of him as an activist. I think he does amazing work. Similar to Mark Emery, he's willing to put himself out there, like, you know, stand in front of the tank with a flower, if you will. And I really admire that, and I think that his message of constantly pushing for access to cannabis for the young as well is really important and one of the most essential parts of helping end marijuana stigmatization. So I was really excited to hear him speak on the panel too. So I'm gonna take this dab. I'm gonna play this video. I also wanted to mention another part of the Cannabis and Hemp Conference and Expo that's going on tonight. It's by invitation. I'm just trying to get the invitation, the event up here. And it's going to be a lecture, or not lecture, it's a speaking about Project CBD, which is going to be really interesting. And it's a 2-hour speaking. It starts at 6 p.m., I believe. And it's here in Vancouver. The Wi-Fi sucks. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to get you the event details, and it's not loading for me. So I'm just going to focus on this dab. What am I doing? Granville Island, Dr. Martin A. Lee is speaking on CBD. Thank you, Expert Joints. All right, so now I can just take this dab. And I'm hitting this beautiful piece that was made for me by Nico BH Glass, who was displaying some of his awesome artwork last night at the 710 party, along with a bunch of other really talented glass artists. So, yeah. And right now I am smoking on Jack Frost, which is a hybrid. It's Stoner Monkey extraction, and I got it at 1674 Davy. Oh yeah, okay, so there's gonna be some questions that Martin A. Lee will be covering during this informative talk. Can CBD cure epilepsy? What is the best CBD-THC ratio? How does CBD and THC interact? How does single molecule CBD compare to whole plant CBD-rich cannabis in terms of therapeutic efficacy? Doesn't matter if CBD is extracted from industrial hemp or marijuana. Does CBD have any adverse side effects? And what about CBD drug interactions? So it's going to be a really interesting talk. We had a lot of CBD conversations this weekend, and I'm really interested to start trying it. I think that I'm going to go pick up some of the CBD distillate from 1674 Davy. Maybe start dabbing on some of that. Maybe next week on the show I'll be dabbing on some distillate. We'll see. I'm really interested in trying it and seeing. Maybe I can do some blogs on the effects that I notice. I'm sure I wouldn't be the first person to do it, but yeah, so after this video, we're probably going to be signing out for the show, so be sure you tune in for the rest of the week for Pot TV. Wednesday, we have From Under the Seed Desk with Marijuana Man, Al the Alchemist, and Kush Queen in between. Thursday, we have Expert Joints with Craig X. Friday, we have, and Stormy Ent now too as well. Friday, we have Cannabis Culture News Live with Jeremiah Vandermeer and John Ruffello. And then we'll be back again on Monday with me, Carly Marley, next week. So stay tuned. We're going to play the video of Jeremiah Vandermeer moderating the dispensary panel. So close, so close. We're going to watch the video of Jeremiah Vandermeer moderating the dispensary panel at the Cannabis Hemp Conference and Expo that happened this weekend. Yeah, so get stoned and watch that, because that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our next moderator, Jeremiah Vandermeer. So Jeremiah is the editor-in-chief of Cannabis Culture and Pot TV. Since 2012, he has been the organizer of Vancouver's largest marijuana events, including 420, Cannabis Day, and the Global Marijuana March. His latest project has been setting up and overseeing Cannabis Culture's recreational marijuana stores in Vancouver and Toronto. And I just want to say, a huge congratulations and thank you to Jeremiah for all his work. And this year, 420 was an exceptional event. It was outdoor, it was at Sunset Beach. It took a lot of time and effort and heart for the Cannabis Culture team and Jeremiah to put that together. So really, gratitude and thank you. So I'll let Jeremiah introduce the rest of the panel, and this is our dispensary panel, current issues and going forward.
Thanks, guys. And a big, huge thanks to Salome. Oh my goodness, Salome, this has been so fantastic. I'm going to get right into introducing the panelists, and then we'll just talk a little bit about kind of where we are. This panel is the current and future state of dispensaries panel. So I just want to introduce Andrea Dobbs, first of all. And I guess we should, I don't know, do we bring them up one by one? It's like Price is Right or something? Come on down. Come on down. As a holistic health enthusiast and career entrepreneur, Andrea focused her lens on the cannabis arena, buoyed by her successful integration of cannabis remedies to manage the various symptoms of perimenopause and a desire to share the success with others. Andrea's history includes progressive community businesses in food services, retail, and health. Now a passionate proponent of medical marijuana, Andrea is the co-founder of the Village Dispensary and a chairperson for Women's Grow, Vancouver's chapter. And as Andrew Gordon is next. Andrew, where are you out there? Come on down. Andrew's the COO and Community Integration Director of Cannabis Dispensaries in Vancouver, Toronto. Andrew currently works with Cannabis Dispensaries in Vancouver and Toronto, specializing in operational efficiency, patient relations, community partnerships, and cannabis compliance. During 2015 and 2016, Andrew worked as a Community Integration Director for True Natural Healing Society, a nonprofit compassion club based in Kitsilano, dedicated to providing qualified patients access to natural cannabis solutions and holistic services. He's excited at the prospect of legalization and is passionate about working with key community stakeholders from across Canada to build an understanding and acceptance for cannabis to help reduce social stigma for consumers and abate pharmaceutical drug dependence within communities. Andrew? Next on the list here is Juana Nakora, the CEO of Eggs Canada. Juana, come on down. Juana began her advocacy to have cannabis recognized as a viable form of treatment and pain management for patients undergoing chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and for dual modality patients during her time at the Fraser Valley Cancer Agency. Juana continues her fight for the use of medical marijuana as a form of treatment and preventative care of many widespread illnesses and ailments in her work today. She's now the CEO of 3 Eggs Canada locations, an ever-growing dispensary chain whose primary focus is on patient care and funding future cannabinoid research and applications. Juan is also on the dispensary board for the Cannabis Growers of Canada, a non-profit organization whose goals include lobbying and all. Oh, and happy 420, sorry about that. The alarm is up there, but whose goals include lobbying at all levels of government, including federal, to ensure that all new laws and legislation are reflective of patients' rights for safe access, affordability, and fair treatment and recognition of the grassroots communities, including dispensaries and MMAR growers. So, Juana, thank you. And where is he? Next, David Malolevine, come on down. David Malolevine, cannabis author and activist, and also founder of Stressed and Depressed Association, Vancouver here. David has been writing about cannabis since 1992 and organizing civil disobedience since 1993. In 1995, David was flown out from Edmonton to Vancouver to be a professional pot activist by Mark Emery. In 1996, David sold pot openly, creating the legend of Amsterdam. Charges from his harm reduction club led David to become the youngest self-represented person to appear before the Supreme Court. Since his defeat there, David created the Herb School and the Herb Museum. The former resulted in 4 months jail time, and the latter he sold to a U.S. pot activist in order to open up a med pot dispensary for both sick and healthy people, and that's Stressed and Depressed. His websites are potshot.ca, herbmuseum.ca, and stressedanddepressed.ca. All right, there we go. So it's a strange time to be in the marijuana business here in Canada. On the one hand, we have a federal medical marijuana program beginning with the Parker Court decision in 2000 that's allowed some Canadians to access marijuana for medical purposes. And over the years, because the rules have been too restrictive, we've had further gains through the courts. We've also had some losses when it comes to regulations. For example, the Conservative government recently banning the home growing of marijuana by patients. So we keep going kind of back and forth. But the system we have still remains too restrictive. Right now we have a small group of companies allowed to produce through a distribution model that is just through the mail, through home delivery. And we have the Allard case, which was recently in the courts, that looked at those conservatives' new rules about the home growing and basically threw the entire thing out as against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, saying that the act of growing at home for patients is an important part. So it's kind of a weird system on the federal level. We also have Justin Trudeau, now elected, saying he's going to legalize marijuana for recreational purposes as well as for medical. But of course he's put a police officer named Bill Blair in charge and another politician named Anne McClellan, who over the years have been kind of against marijuana, prohibitionists, and they don't really seem like they're going in I mean, we haven't seen it yet, but there's some fears over the direction that they're going. 20 years ago, the first Compassion Club started popping up, and over the years, those shops have proliferated in places like Vancouver and Toronto, and a bunch of other smaller communities. And the police in many of the jurisdictions refuse to bust those dispensaries and have allowed them to be there for 20 years. Some cops in certain jurisdictions have gone after them, and recently we've had major raids in Toronto. There was 47 dispensaries raided. At the same time, we have municipalities making their own rules for marijuana dispensaries. Ones like in Vancouver that include $30,000 for a license, but also restricts over 90% of the current spots they were at. So we also have Victoria and other places coming up with their own legislation, making this sort of patchwork gray area for marijuana across the country. Everybody wants a piece of it as we go forward into legalization, and you have liquor stores and drug stores lobbying the government on a provincial level to allow them to be selling marijuana as we move forward. You also have the LPs, some of the LPs, lobbying to close these dispensaries and eliminate them completely. So that's kind of where we're at. It's a weird place to be. But here's the questions that we've kind of come up with here. How do we ensure that existing small businesses in the cannabis realm, all of our dispensaries that are there now, transition into the new cannabis marketplace? And I wanted to start with Andrea on that one.
Well, that is the million-dollar question, and I've taken a little time to consider that. For myself, I think there's two layers here, or two ways to go, two factors to consider is what I mean. We could look to marketplaces that allowed continuity of business. So in Oregon, that was a business model that they went with. They decided that those who met a series of best practices could integrate into the existing marketplace. So I'd like to see something like that at least studied. And the other piece, I think, is that we elected, many of us, not all of us, elected Justin Trudeau, and he had a mandate to support the middle class, and many small businesses are the middle class. And if he were to take this industry out of BC and hand it over to multinational style corporations, that would be against his mandate, and I think that we could put some pressure on him from that point.
Yeah, those are all great points. It's a tough question when you look at transition in general. It's volatile, it's uncertain, and as business owners, you look for a certain amount of metrics and certainty. But at the end of the day, you start one person at a time, and what I try and do is really, it's not about just breeding customers or building your membership, it's about creating advocates, because when you have people out there in the community that are speaking on your behalf, are sharing the knowledge and the evidence-based research in cogent and considerate ways, the conversation changes. And when that happens, magic happens. And I see it every single day in the shops that I'm a part of, and the wonderful people that I work with in this industry who are cultivating that same dynamic. And that brings me to my second point here, is staying attuned to opportunities to join forces with like-minded people, because that's going to increase positive momentum. And when you look for those opportunities, whether it's your vendor, it's your neighbor, it's the guy who made a complaint about you. There's opportunities there, and you can really connect and provide an opportunity for exchange that is accountable and transparent, and that's what people are looking for in this industry. It seems scary from the outside. It's unregulated, it's illegal. That's another factor we do address. And you have to be forthright about that. You have to be transparent, and people respond and make their own informed choices, and you really are there to facilitate a need that is great. So if you focus on those points, I think the transition will be easier and the integration will be welcome.
I agree. I think those are all great points. I think that we can all recognize that the government's really slow at doing anything. They're great that they've already started this legislation and that they're willing to legalize it. So I think that if the dispensaries want to solidify their place, we need to be the ones coming up with the legislation, and we need to be the ones writing the reform and bringing it to their attention. We need to stick together and unify. All the different trade memberships need to come together, and this is the time where we need to have our voices heard. In the communities, we know that we are a staple. People want us in the community. So I think what we need to do now is come together and bring that notion to the federal and provincial governments. We cannot wait for them to write legislation because it's not going to be in our favor. We need to be proactive, and we need to be doing it now.
Yeah.
I'd like to echo that wisdom from my fellow panelists. I actually did write an example of possible legislation for the government to mull over, chew on. I think we have to recognize that we'll get whatever we insist on. Just like industrial hemp, government didn't want to legalize that. We insisted and they relented. Same with medical marijuana, same with some kind of recreational marijuana. We'll get whatever we insist on, but we have to be united in a vision of what we want. And I think what we all want here is an inclusive economy where everyone who wants to smoke can smoke, everyone who wants to grow can grow, and everyone who wants to be a retailer can be one. So that will involve a lot of work on destigmatization, mostly around youth use. We have to be more realistic about cannabis's harms relative to other soft drugs like caffeine. We have to look honestly at the information about cannabis not actually causing any psychosis, increase in psychosis or decrease in IQs. We have to be brave and stand up to all the ignorant parents in Canada and say, no, actually it's not going to hurt your teen, and here's why.
So, David, we're going to ask a question. I know that's one of the areas that is important to David. There's been a lot of these groups coming out that are trade associations, lobby groups for different parts of the marijuana community. The LPs have theirs, and there's others. What are the first steps we need to take to really build a unified front, do you guys think? As members of the craft cannabis community, or whatever we want to call the dispensaries, what kind of supports do we need to find a common voice? And that, I'll direct the first one to Juana.
Sure, thank you. Well, I feel that there's different niches, and Andrea actually spoke about this a half hour prior to us coming up on this panel. And you know, what her and I had both said is that there's different niches in this market, and I think that if trade associations can find their own, you know, Andrea said, right, somebody needs to represent the growers, somebody needs to represent the patients, somebody needs to represent pretty much every facet of this industry. And if we can find common ground, and unify and kind of have a resource for every single niche, I think that that's going to be a united front. That's going to give us the credibility that we need. We're basically saying, look, we don't need the government to overregulate us. We are responsible individuals, and we can regulate ourselves, and we can find common ground amongst ourselves and kind of find a specific area that each person can be responsible for. If there's somebody that's writing legislation, great. Somebody who's taking care of the patients, great. So I think that a unified front really starts with the trade associations and the different, the number of trade associations. Some of them can amalgamate and become one and focus on a niche and give us a voice.
Andrew?
Yeah, those are all great points, and it was nice to be part of that earlier discussion because it definitely, you know, is ongoing, and there's no doubt about that. But really, it starts person to person. It starts proprietor to proprietor. And when you look at the field in front of you and you stop seeing competition and you embrace collaboration, there's something powerful that comes from that, and a transformation of perspective that really informs the community and keeps people united within our community and our sector, the union, as we call it. So, it's all about supporting each other. It's celebrating each other's successes. It's acknowledging each other's failures and really working together to get that conversation evolving in a way that serves first and foremost our patients and our members, and second of all, our communities. And hopefully there's a part of it there that we also benefit from as proprietors and people who are in the community trying to create sustainable businesses, because that matters. Small to mid-sized business is really the heart of communities. I've been across a number of places in this country and around the world, and people connect with their businesses in no way that you see in any other sector in the small to mid-sized realm. And when cannabis is a part of that equation, and the healing and the wellness and the wholeness that comes from about that, it's pretty incredible. So let's just stick together, support each other, and
Be a unified front, right?
Yeah, the unified front. David, you have anything to say about that?
I'm just going to bring it all back to cannabis and teens again, because everything pivots on this one point. Whenever they raid a dispensary, whenever they brutalize pot activists at rallies, whenever they go after anybody, they always justify it. Well, it'll warp the developing minds of young people. And if we all familiarize ourselves with the information that says it doesn't, and actually also act as advocates for teens who use it for stress and depression, the number 1 or 2 or 3 reason in North America teens die prematurely is suicide. Cannabis is an excellent antidepressant and relaxant, great medicine for teens. We have to become more brave. We have to learn this information. We have to destigmatize cannabis so it's sold similar to like coffee beans instead of thalidomide.
Right. Andrea?
One of the things that concerns me is that it's very easy to fragment as an industry. There are so many people who are very passionate about multiple issues that our industry faces, and like our political parties, we have 3 big major political parties, and we got Harper how many times because we both voted for the other guys. And we had a country that was run by, somebody who was elected by maybe 1/3 of our population. So I fear that with too many trade associations, that we will end up with too many voices and not one unified voice. That said, I really do understand that people who, for instance, growers have unique needs and demands, and retailers have different, and processors have different, and consumers have different. There are a lot of people to represent here, but if we can try to create a big umbrella that recognizes these core pillars and support that, that's, to me, the best way to move forward.
Awesome. Great comment. So my third question here is, first of all, I just want to set this up. The Toronto raid that happened, 47 dispensaries raided, the police chief laid out all of the edibles and all of this stuff in front of the cameras, treating us like Mexican drug dealers or something, and really one of the main key points that he kept bringing up was that, well, we don't know what's in these things. These are dangerous items. We don't know the amounts of what's in them, and that was very important to him. And of course, that's a real issue. We are selling a product to the public. And my question is, what accountability do you think we as retailers of cannabis products have to those who consume products purchased in our shops? How can dispensaries become good neighbors and contributing members of the business community? And how do we, in that light, start to regulate ourselves before the government over-regulates us? And we'll start with Andrew.
Thank you. Wow, that's a big question. It's not easy to meet, but I think it's definitely something we need to strive towards. I think, you look at accountability, you look at your testing analytically and the insight that provides, and the sexy science around what's happening in cannabis right now. I mean, it's not about these strain names, it's about this profile of cannabinoids and terpenes that has these synergistic properties within the endocannabinoid system, and being able to inform people about that and make informed choices around what strains and what solutions they look at is really, really important. So your testing is actually where all your conversational currency is built. I don't know what's in it until I test it. I don't know what the concentration levels are. I can't sit there and look at you as a patient and as a member any sort of credibility or accountability or transparency and go, yeah, this is going to work for you. We don't know. There is no clinical testing going on at the level it needs to really provide the conviction and cogency we need to get communities perhaps to come on board more. But that's changing, and if we test, if we share that knowledge, but at the end of the day, if we don't interpret it in a way that the member understands, so you need sometimes colorful charts, you need to take time with people, you need to exchange ideas and information that are very personal, and you need to be able to respect that. So accountability is about consideration, and then again, that breeds into good business practices. And these trade associations that we're talking about, I mean, they're helping to lead the way in terms of providing a framework. I don't like throwing darts in the dark. I really don't. Give me a framework, I'll run with it. And I want to, and I like the idea of it, and it provides me the credibility I need to do what I do every day.
Awesome. David, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, when it comes to standards, you don't need to raid dispensaries to have clean weed. You just need to set up standards, criteria that growers have to meet. They have to test for contaminants and ratios of medicinal components in order to sell pot. They'll all get those tested. Now, the LPs don't have to publish their testing. Supposedly they all do testing. None of it's on any of their websites. The only tests that have ever been done to compare dispensary weed and LP weed came back in 2004, Canadians for Safe Access, and they found that the LP weed was higher in metals, higher in microbes, and lower in THC, and then they irradiated their weed to get rid of the microbes, but it actually also damaged the terpenes. We should not fear testing. We should just embrace it and have it above the board and require all the results to be published, and then we can really see if the LP weed is cleaner than the dispensary weed. I suspect it is, and I suspect the organic standards would take care of all of those concerns.
Great point. I mean, yes, you're absolutely right, and that's exactly it. We as dispensaries are responsible for the product that we're bringing into our store. So if we do not accept product that's not being tested, if we do not accept product that's not properly labeled, federal and provincial governments and say, hey, look, we regulate ourselves and we do a really good job, and here's our testing, and here's what we've purchased, and here's our labeling, and there is no harm, and there's not going to be any harm if you allow for us to continue to have this. And I think that every dispensary owner has that responsibility to their patients, and it's very, very important. With regards to being a good neighbor, that comes from your training and how your staff represents themselves. And I think that every single one of us wants to be a good neighbor and wants to be involved and included in the community, chit chat in the community flyers that they send out in the community meetings. And I feel like we need to take the first steps in introducing ourselves and putting ourselves out there, because we have been stigmatized and demonized, and those people are not going to come to us. We need to go to them. We need to change people's opinions about cannabis, and we need to do it in a professional and proper stand, and we need to have backing when we go to these people. Testing is the number one thing that we need to all abide by and ensure that products that are reaching our patients are being tested.
Andrea?
Yeah, I agree with many of the points that have been raised. I do personally feel a great sense of responsibility and to each of the people that I serve. So I think it's kind of important. The way that I came to it was from identifying the market that I felt that I could resonate with and that I wanted to serve, and then making sure that I take the time to provide the information that I know they need. So, for instance, in my case, many people who come to the shop have never consumed cannabis. So we need to have that conversation and talk about what's that going to feel like, and what are your concerns, and I want to know that they've walked away with enough information to understand that this is going to be a little bit of trial and error, and you're going to need to find your place, and if you have discomfort, that's okay, you can talk about that. So the more information I have to share with, the better I feel. So testing, ingredients, sugar-free, not sugar-free calories, all of that, it's all important.
Well, when it comes to these regulations, David brought up a point a couple times now about youth and cannabis. And considering the effective use of cannabis for young people, we have even Sanjay Gupta on CNN highlighting that. But yet, of course, at the dispensaries, we still have our self-regulations that have 18 or 19 plus. considering the evidence showing cannabis is an effective medicine, how do you guys think we should treat the use of cannabis by minors? How do we regulate that part of it? And I know what David's going to say, so we'll leave him to the end. Maybe Andrew or Juana, we'll start with you.
Start with me?
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I think youth and cannabis needs to be treated on a, one-by-one basis, right? There are youth that can benefit from cannabis. I think to stigmatize it and say that it's going to cause brain damage and this and that is ridiculous, because these youth are on prescription painkillers, they're on antidepressants, they're on a numerous amount of pharmaceutical drugs that have been proven to cause far more damage than cannabis. So I think to kind of have that closed-minded, oh, well, it's an illegal drug and it must be horrible. Okay, what you're buying at the store with all the pesticides, that's probably harming your children way more than cannabis is. The pharmaceuticals that are being given to those kids to treat certain ailments that we know cannabis can help with, that's damaging your child's liver to an extent that is irreplaceable damage because they're young kids. So when we look at it, we can't just think of it as cannabis. Should I give cannabis to my children? It should be, should I give cannabis to my children or pharmaceutical drugs? And that is a choice that a mom makes, not the government.
I'm also a mom, having raised 4 children. The biggest consideration for me is that those are really, the years between 13 and 18 are really loaded. They're loaded with social issues. They're loaded with feeling uninspired and depressed and bored in school. They're under fluorescent lights for too many hours. They're eating lots of junk food. There's so many issues there. And while I'm definitely not going to say that I'm afraid that cannabis will somehow turn my child into a zombie. I just want to be really thoughtful about everything that goes into their bodies during this time. In particular, I had young women, so puberty was pretty dynamic. And for 5 females in the house, it was really interesting. So maybe cannabis would have helped, I don't know. Yeah, so that, it just want to be conscious. So yeah, would I choose cannabis over, clonazepam in a heartbeat? The whole, using it for stress. I want to make sure that my kids have tools to manage stress, and if that happens to be one of the tools in the tool chest, okay, but I don't want it to be the tool. I need you to know how to take a walk, take a nap, read a book. And if cannabis is there, that's fine. So as long as it's a holistic approach, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I just echo absolutely everything you said. As a new parent myself, it's a question I'm going to have to wrestle with. I hope to be proactive in that conversation and lead by example. I think that's really what it boils down to. When you take things to excess, problems arise. And when you are measured in your approach and you modulate your endocannabinoid system in a way that is responsive to your need and doesn't inebriate you to the point of ineffectiveness, then I think the people around you respond to that message. I do it every day. I microdose throughout the day and I don't apologize for it. I know exactly how much I need and why I need it, and I do that. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I also use meditation and other approaches, but I suffer from PTSD. So that is something I really actually need to control anxiety and anger. And I think my family will respond to that, and my children will respond to that. And I hope if I lead by example and be an effective community leader and liaison, we can move this message forward in a positive direction, but it is very much a case-by-case basis. So, and it's up to the mom. As a dad, I know that for sure. So, yeah, we'll see what mom has to say.
Okay. David, try to keep it.
Keep it brief. I'll keep it brief. I realize that, but
yes.
In Washington State, they did it wrong. Teenagers are now facing felonies, whereas before they were facing misdemeanors. We have to be mature enough to say prohibition is going to harm our kids way more than marijuana abuse could ever harm their kids. Daniel Posse in 1992, a young man got caught with 15 grams in his own house, got killed in a police raid. All over the United States, around 2 or 3 every year. teens get killed in police raids over cannabis. If we find a way to incorporate them into legalization, we can protect them from the police, we can protect them from the black market, we can protect them from being under-medicated for their stress and depression, and we can keep them off the pills, which actually you can die from withdrawal from Effexor and other antidepressants, painkillers, ADHD drugs. I'll say one more thing. The Senate report recommended in 2002 that 16 years old would be the age limit for buying on your own. Now that's acceptable to me if we have 15 and under with their parental and physician's supervision, 16 and over, buying it on their own. We are saying, as a society, with our own actions, this isn't as dangerous as alcohol or tobacco. And that's the right message to send to our kids, because they're not going to believe anything else, and they won't listen to anything else, because anything else is untrue.
Yeah. And David has written a book on the subject of youth and cannabis, actually. What's the title there, David?
The title is Free Online, Does Cannabis Inherently Harm Young People's Developing Minds? It's available for free online. And yeah, I've kind of ran out of copies. I was handing them out all day. But it's also, there's quotes from it in here. I still have some copies here if you want of my report to the Justice Minister.
Okay, thanks, David. Now, just this last question here, we're getting a little low on time and we're going to open it up to questions. But I just had one question here. As we move forward and recreational marijuana becomes legal on some level here, as the Prime Minister has promised to do, you know, this is, I think, an important step, is what do we do next, and how does this work with the medical marijuana dispensaries? My question is, can recreational use be considered medicinal use in some way? And how do you guys plan on handling the transition from medicinal use to legal recreational use? And Andrea, I'll start with you.
For me personally, I look at it, there's streams, there's medical cannabis, which for myself, I would rather not have to meet, say, a young woman, single mother with stage 4 brain cancer coming to shop at the dispensary. It breaks my heart. I don't think she should be shopping at a dispensary. I think she should be in a place where she's cared for and someone is, you know, supporting her through the whole thing, and that should happen in a hospital. So maybe one day that will be the way that happens. I personally feel that in my shop I talk a lot about therapeutic applications. The therapeutic may be around stress relief. It may also be, you know, I need to make a painting and I can't use my brain. That's there. Some people might identify that as recreation, but the word about recreation kind of, to me, almost sounds like it carries a little bit of risk. So recreation would be like skydiving and cliff jumping, and so therapeutic feels a little bit more relatable to me. Yeah, I do think that there's a preventative aspect, definitely, about feeding our endogenous system, and I do feel that you can blur the lines between what is a really lovely day at the beach and was that not therapeutic for me, or, you know, yeah. So there I see a definite affinity between recreational, quote, and therapeutic medical.
Juana, thanks.
Okay, so I'm not going to touch on youth because I'm going to use the word choice a lot here. So for me, I think it's an easy transition. Listen, I think that whether you choose to use it for medicinal purposes or whether you choose to use it for therapeutical purposes, as long as we have the proper labeling, the proper testing, all of those tools are there, and we've set ourselves up for success with regards to that. There really isn't much of a difference. I think that any dispensary can go either way. I think that it is a choice, and that's what it ultimately comes down to. If you're 19 years or older and you choose to use it because your back hurts, that's your choice. If you choose to use it because, you know what, at the end of the day, it takes the edge off and it makes you calm and it makes you not fight with your wife, that's your choice. And again, you know, the reason why we keep winning in the court system is because ultimately in Canada, you have rights. And when they're imposing or trying to take away your rights, you have a choice to fight back. So for me, recreational or medicinal, ultimately, it comes to the patient's rights, to the client's rights, the customer's rights. It is a choice. What you choose to use it for is none of the government's business, period.
David, next.
Well, you know, as activist Steve Cubby always says, if you don't like marijuana, you're going to hate the future. Because it's going to be everywhere. When fully researched, it could replace up to 50% of all pharmaceutical drugs. And we have to look at the word recreation. It's not the antithesis of medicine, it's a subset of medicine. The word's etymology traces back to restore to health. That's what it means. And laughter has been called the best medicine. So we have to see all cannabis use as at least an attempt at preventive medicine, if not palliative, curative, and other forms of medicine. I see a vision we can all unite under is what I call the organic fair trade coffee bean model with the 16-year-old age limit. I think that's acceptable to everybody who has an open mind and looks at the evidence. Cannabis and other herbs could be covered under the healthcare system so that poor people can have their herbs covered just as pills are currently today, and then we can take everybody off the drug war battlefield and legitimize everyone and get pot to the people who need it. And then we can all grow as a society and have good jobs with no boss and live in harmony with each other and our planet.
And Andrew? Yeah, I mean, in the interest of time, definitely echo all of the comments up here, but really it's a lifestyle choice for a lot of people, and they should have they have the constitutional right to choose. But we have to make informed decisions. We as proprietors and as a community have to be strict with our standards and rigorous with our accountability. But there is a therapeutic value to this, it's undeniable. I get inspired by the words of Steve D'Angelo when he talks about these peripheral benefits because they matter and they're real, and that's, you know, where all the stigma and differentiation and everything is associated with in terms of people's minds and how they use. You shouldn't have to make that distinction, in my mind. If you want to use it therapeutically to relax or medicinally to treat your pain and inflammation, so be it. And as long as we're here providing quality assurance controls and information and evidence-based resources, then the conversation will change, and there's going to be a powerful, powerful movement across this country and across this globe. And whether it's therapeutic or medicinal, it won't matter because cannabis transcends all of that.
Fantastic. Thanks for the comments, guys. Great comments. Now, we are past our time here. I want to open it up for questions to the floor here.